Okay, make sure I'm going the right way. Or should I say the wrong way? Oh, treasure chest. Isn't that interesting from a game design standpoint, right? Like, typically, as from the perspective, right, of a player, typically you want to go the right way, right? Because you're like, oh, that's the direction of my objective. I want to go the right way. That's going to lead me to plot points and furthering the game's, story and all this stuff. But in reality, don't you always want to go the wrong way first? Because that's the way that's going to give you, like, treasure, or it's going to give you the secret quest. You as a player never want to go the right way. And I think there are a lot of games out there that are designed around that, designed around the meta-knowledge of players will always do the wrong things. And so you can kind of get in the head of your players and do silly things like that. Undertale, or even like that part of Portal where it's like, do not put this object in this place or something. But as a player, are we ever incentivized to go the right way first in most games? Now, obviously, if the wrong way leads to death, then yeah, you don't get anything out of it. But even in games, get our first choice. Even in games where it looks like the wrong way leads to death, like the old Mega Man games and Zero and all that, jumping off a cliff that looks like it should kill you oftentimes reveals some kind of secret, so I don't know. So what do we want here? We get our choice of fire, earth, wind, or water. Let's not do any more water. Water's boring at this point. We've already got drain magic. We don't need anything else. So that leaves us with earth, wind, and fire. We've already put enough points into wind to get the cool spell. There's nothing, and I mean nothing else in wind that's even worth it. I feel like fire, maybe? What does earth get us? Earth gets us a couple defense spells. See, earth is really only good if we can get it up to the point where we get avalanche. Let's do that. We'll go all the way into earth, and we'll try to get avalanche before the end of the game. I don't know if we'll actually get there. There's a chance that we will reach the end of the game before we get... It's probably somewhere around the level that we got drain magic. It's like probably around 40 earth. We'll go ahead and get that, though, because as I said way earlier, earth does give you the best spell against the final boss of the game. And that'll cover all of our weaknesses, sans fire. Fire will be the one element that we will have no defense against. I'm really assuming that levels of spirits of an element give you resistance to that element. I have no real proof of that, by the way. Other than just sort of a game sense from playing the game so much. Oh, we like pushed them. That can happen sometimes, that you can push through a model and it'll move. Not really a big deal in this game, since repositioning the enemies ever so slightly doesn't have a huge effect. But it's kind of a big deal in Aiden Chronicles, where... In Aiden Chronicles, they did this really cool thing where, if you engage someone in melee, it simulates the fact that you can't really move around them very easily. So your sphere, or octagon, or whatever you want to call it, is smaller when it comes to moving when you're nearby an enemy. But certain characters have weird quirks in their animations that you can use to disjoint yourself from an enemy model. And so movement becomes a lot more important, like spacing existing, or like forcing a movement is much more relevant than it is in Quest 64. In Quest 64, it's largely just important that we position Brian correctly at the end of his turn so that we can run and avoid a spell. But a lot of these spells, as you see, aren't even avoidable, such as the Ice Knife spell. Ice Knife, baby! You know I had to do it. So we did indeed go the wrong way, but there appears to be a spirit in the corner of the cave here, and we'll gladly take it. What do we do here? I think we drain magic. But yeah, again, you can just see why drain magic is so valuable. At this point, we almost don't even need items. The only reason we'll keep them around, or not like, well, it's not like you can sell them or get rid of them really, but the best use for items at this point is to ensure that if you get a bad string of misses, so you can miss your drain magic spell. If you get a bad string of misses, you won't be stuck with 0 MP. It's kind of like a car battery. As long as it has just a little bit of juice, you can recharge it, but the moment that you run out of juice, it can't turn on. Same thing with our mana. As long as we have a little bit of mana, we can drain mana from someone, but if we run out of mana, we can't. These scorpions have so much HP. Like, legitimately, please, just die. Okay. No surprises here. We're gonna do Earth for the rest of the game, so Earth it is. I don't know, there are a couple of neat Earth spells. There's one called Rolling Stone or something like that. That one's decent. It's good against monsters that are weak to Earth. And again, that's the obvious advantage to dual typing, or in our case, we're gonna triple type at this point. We can play the element game a little more than other Brian builds would be able to. If you went pure water or pure something. Although at this point, if you went pure one element, you should be beginning to get into your second element. Because, how many points do we have? 40 minus, well, okay, you start out at level 1, so 39 plus 12. What is that? 39 plus 12, 49, 51, plus 2 from Earth, so 53. Yeah, so we have 53 levels, and need 49 levels to put something up to 50. So we would be 4 levels into another element if we peered into a single element. It's kind of another reason why you're not really incentivized to stick to a single element. It's not like you're just going to spend the game dumping all of your stats into the wind mage stat or the water mage stat, which again I do enjoy. It makes for much more interesting builds when you can't viably just dump all your stats into one thing. Lev just recently shared a video talking about 4th edition D&D. That was a really fun video. I wish I could remember what it was called. It's something like Memories of D&D 4th edition. I'm sure if you typed something like that into YouTube, you'd find it. But it was so good. It was so funny. There it is. I knew there was a spirit around here. It was so funny, and one of the things it said was, in 4th edition, you didn't actually have primary stats, you just had your singular primary stat. Like, if you were a con spellcaster, you just had con as your stat. None of your other stats mattered. He talked about how, as long as you were good in your classes, it's not, I guess you could call it a primary stat. I shouldn't have called it primary stat, but you get my point, right? Paladins put their points into charisma, mages put their points into wisdom. As long as you did that, you were amazing at everything, and if you didn't do that, you were terrible at everything. Interestingly, Quest 64 bypasses that because you can't just put all your stats into one thing. Because at a certain point, you're going to hit the limit. So a little frustratingly, these crawlers did not group up very nicely. We're going to come over here and heal a couple times and try and draw them out. Using Ice Knife. It's not helpful to us. They really are just spaced out in not a good way. I think we are going to wind cutter this. Yeah. If I could, I'd go through the entire game with wind. Wind is definitely my favorite element. Thematically, mechanically. My wife always says I would be an air adept in, or do they call them adepts? No, that's Golden Sun. What am I thinking of? Airbender in the Avatar universe. She gets so frustrated because there's like a character in one of the early episodes. I think his name is Boomer. And he's like, "Oh, avoid and evade the typical airbender tactics." My wife is just like, "That's you." I do hate to be pinned down. If I can play a game and just dance outside of people's reach while slowly poking them to death, it's generally a strategy I enjoy. For those of you who play Netrunner, Lepsis can definitely attest to that through my Jinteki death by 1,000 paper cuts strategies. Come on, Brian, drain this mana. Drain this mana. This is what I'm talking about, though. This is why you still need items. Because sometimes the game just says, no! No mana for you! Oh my goodness. Well, we know he's not out of mana, because he's still using the waterfall spell. And yes, I'm not kidding when I say the enemies can run out of magic. In which case, they either use their melee attack, if they have one, or they just sit there and do nothing. Some of the bosses will end up being like that, and it's kind of hilarious. Like, I don't know if we'll get to that situation, because I think we know what we're doing enough. Okay, don't be fooled. This isn't the end of the Crystal Cave. This is end of part 1. This is part 2. Anyway, we know enough of what we're doing. I don't think that boss fights are going to last that long. They might. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, but if you let the fights last long enough, especially the one against Guilty. Oh my goodness. I don't know what the Quest 64 designers were thinking when they put Guilty into the game and were like, let's give him 4,000 HP and he's resistant to everything and deals a ton of damage. It's a horrible fight. It's probably the worst fight in the game. Because there's nothing to do. Like, you know how against Zels, we were like dancing in and out of his range, hoping he would use the sideways Zephyr move, and like with Solvering, we were scooting about the edge of the map. The thing about the fight with Guilty is that it's like a small square room, and you just have to fight him head on. So it's like this half-hour long stat fight, where you're just mashing your statistics against his. It's not fun. It's the worst fight in the game, I think. It is a good stat check. It's certainly a good, like, hey players, you're at the end of the game. Did you do your homework? Are you playing the game intelligently? Can you last through this insane fight? Otherwise, when the answer is yes, you're just like, yes, already, let me through. Yeah, I don't know. The arrows are telling us to go to the right, so obviously we're going to go to the left. Make sure we gather all those juicy spirits floating around the world. And we're going to die if we're not careful. Brian, you need to stop missing. $76%. Fair enough. I know at some point, though, the stones start lying. Or they're... Maybe lying is a bit strong. They're just inaccurate. Shoot. Is this the direction we were going? I was going to run away from this fight, but I can't remember if we were going this direction. So I'm going to win it so that the game points us in the right direction after the end. Let's do walking water. Maybe that'll do more. It's like the same. In fact, I think wind does a little more. I don't know. It's probably not true, but sometimes I feel like wind has the worst accuracy. Although I say that, I just missed with water. I don't know how the game factors in accuracy at all. Let's see if we can soul search. And then we'll... Is there an accuracy stat? HP, defense, agility. It's probably tied to agility somehow. Yeah, and this is a water enemy, HP 75. Defense of 23. I don't know what defense really does. I assume it just lowers all damage that you deal. Would be my guess. Or receive, rather. Yeah, why wouldn't we want to go this way? There's 2 treasure chests over here. I mean, we'll probably never use another dewdrop. We're at the point of the game where 10 MP is not... It's good for kickstarting us, right? We run out of mana and we're stuck. Or jump-starting us. Otherwise, dewdrops at the very bottom of the list of usability. Something else that I ponder every now and then is the... What's the word? How reasonable it is to expect the player to actually max out their agility or their... What's the word? Defense? I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. No, don't waterfall us. We're kind of stuck in a corner here. It's another reason why I really like Quest 64. Your environment matters in a fight. Like, we can't run away. And that's not the game telling us we can't run away. It's not like rolling a die and saying, oh, sorry, you can't run away. I mean, we are legitimately stuck in this alleyway. And we can't get out. Unless we ran past the enemies. Okay, but this is what I mean. You see how all the bars there fill up? So HP is, of course, filled up because it's representing our current versus the max. Same with MP. You see how defense has that little yellow bar and Jilly has that little yellow bar? That's because Brian can achieve a maximum of all of that gray bar that's missing. And we are probably either at the halfway point of the game or a little bit past it. And we're not even... What would you describe that as? 1/6 of the bar? Maybe? I feel like they should have probably cut the bar down to a 200 of max, or maybe even a 150. Like, players just aren't going to get that much defense or agility through a playthrough of the game, unless they sat there for hours in a battle, just letting monsters hit them over and over. I don't really think that would be that valuable use of a human's time. At that point, you might as well game shark it. I don't know, do you think there's someone out there who's done it? Who just loved Quest 64 so much? I mean, I love Quest 64, and I've never even attempted that. I don't see the point. Alright. Got rock level 2! We're ready to rock and get stuff done. Well, and roll. So many battles. Probably should have water pillared that. They're close enough. I think we can hit them, all of them. Yeah. Yeah. What must Leela be thinking, though? She's like, oh, I'm stuck here protecting the town. Better send this 12-year-old magician after his father. Into this cave. Filled with what she literally calls demons. They're not monsters. They're not guardians of the Crystal Cove. We are the Crystal Gems. It's literally described as demons. These are demons that guard the Crystal Cave. And they're horrifying. They all have horrible eyes. Or are slugs that climb out of treasure chests, or some nonsense. I don't know. But you see what I mean, right, though? We're not in any danger here. And that's okay. We've earned it, right? We've paid our RPG dues. We power leveled that water magic and got our ability to self-sustain more or less infinitely, but man! Oops, that was not what I meant to do. Getting here is fun, though. So, you might be asking, or at least I ask myself this a lot. I think the most disappointing part of any game is when I reach a place where I'm like, okay, I've won, but I've got the rest of the game to go through. You know, there's no other challenges. Nothing meaningful that I'm working for. So you might be asking, you know, like, why play Quest 64 at this point? You've won. You just have to go through everything and make the game realize that you've won. And the answer is, we have a lot of really cool environments to still check out. And the boss fights are kind of fun, still. We're set up to win them. We're not really going to lose them. But they are still kind of fun. And there's some really neat places we're going to go visit. And as I've already said, the end castle is like this fun little playground of just this unfinished mess. So, yeah, kick back and enjoy. We're just gonna grind our way through these battles because what else can we do? We have to fight them to pad Brian's stats. We don't have to, but it'll make our life miserable if we don't. So we'll fight the battles that we run into, and we'll just go explore the world at this point. So how much money do you want to put on me accidentally leveling up a water spell after we gain a level? I'm trying to keep an eye on our percentages so I don't do it. We're 36%. Or accidentally leveling up water element, rather. This game really makes you pay your dues, though. It's like, hey, you're playing a JRPG there. Make sure you fight 10,000 battles. And if we're to analyze how this game falls apart, this is kind of the beginning of it, right? The game relies heavily on the battle system. And admittedly, the battle system is the part of the game that's fun. But you kind of have to ask yourself, is it worth making all of the fights so repetitive? Or not repetitive, but like so frequent. They could have increased the amount of experience points that monsters give you and given the game a lower encounter rate. Ego Raptor, whether you like him or hate him, you know, that's irrelevant. Well, it's not irrelevant. You're definitely entitled to your opinion. I'd love to hear about it. But all I'm trying to say is he did this video that I think is great, where he talks about whether games are actually hard or whether they just take a long time. And he says that a game that is hard will challenge a player, whereas a game that takes a long time just makes a player feel like they're being challenged. When really it's just simulated challenge because it's just something that takes a long time. I think he said that waiting makes it feel big, but it's not. You can see now we're on the upper level of the pathway that we saw earlier. But yeah, these random battles aren't hard at this point. They just take a long time. Someone's texting me. Hang on.